Imagine trying to outrun a falling building, right?
Right.
Only to realize the street you're running onto is also collapsing.
Right.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at this 2,700-year-old blueprint of exactly how human societies break down.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating one.
It really is, because there is this underlying, almost invisible sensation that a lot of you listening right now have probably felt recently. It's this collective vertigo.
That dizziness.
Exactly. It's not just one bad headline. It's the economy, social trust, normal routines. I mean, everything feels simultaneously unstable. So our mission today is to look at an ancient text and some modern commentary that perfectly dissects this feeling of systemic collapse and reset.
Right.
We were examining the biblical book of Isaiah, specifically chapter 24.
And you know, what is really remarkable about this specific text is that it completely strips away the noise.
Yeah.
People usually read ancient writings about the earth turning upside down as, well, just simple apocalyptic doomsaying, right? Meant to scare people.
Sort of like a horror movie kind of thing.
Exactly. But if you look closely, this is actually a masterful surgical observation of structural failure. It's basically an architectural teardown of the illusion of human control.
Okay, I want to push back slightly on that right out of the gate.
Oh, okay.
Because when I read the opening of Isaiah 24, it sounds like pure devastation, not, architecture.
I can see that.
Right? The text literally says the Lord makes the earth empty, makes it waste, and turns it upside down, scattering everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But then it lists who is affected. It says, as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with his master, as with the buyer, so with the seller, and as with the lender, so with the borrower.
And that list, that is the key to the entire mechanism of collapse.
How so?
Well, notice the pairings. Priest and people, that's a religious and cultural hierarchy.
Right.
Master and servant, that's the labor hierarchy. Buyer and seller, lender and borrower, that is the economic engine. The text is systematically walking through, like, every human construct we rely on to organize reality, and pointing out that when a true foundational collapse occurs, none of those titles matter.
Okay, let's unpack this, because hold on, I have to challenge that.
Go for it.
The text portrays this as the ultimate equalizer, right? Saying the master and servant suffer equally.
Right.
But if we look at modern history, the rich always find a way to insulate themselves. I mean, if the market crashes, billionaires buy bunkers or offshore their wealth. How is this actually an equalizer?
Because you're thinking of a localized crisis, like
Yep.
a recession or a political scandal.
Okay.
What's fascinating here is that the text is describing systemic failure. A bunker only works if the concept of private property is still universally respected.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
Right. And offshore wealth only matters if the digital ledger recording that wealth is trusted by the society you eventually need to interact with.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, so when the text pairs the buyer and seller, it's illustrating a total liquidity freeze. It doesn't matter how much gold you have hoarded if the foundational trust required to make a transaction just no longer exists.
So it's not just that people lose their money.
Exactly.
It's that the mechanism of money itself evaporates.
Yes.
It's like an economy built on incredibly complex subprime mortgages.
Yeah.
You can have this beautifully decorated penthouse, but if the structural math at the very bottom is based on bad faith,
The whole building falls.
right, eventually the physics of the lie catches up to the whole building. Wealth can't insulate you from gravity.
That is the exact mechanism at play here. In modern sociology, we talk about complex, tightly coupled systems.
Okay.
When a system is too interconnected and built on fragile assumptions, a failure in one node cascades into every other node. You cannot ignore the bottom layer of society and assume the top layer will remain untouched.
But wait, if the collapse is this total and, this unavoidable, how did it happen in the first place?
That's a big question.
Right. Did some external force actively break this system? Or did it just rust away from the inside? Because the text points directly at internal human behavior.
It does.
Verse 5 says, the earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof. And it gives a specific reason. It says, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant.
Yeah, and that phrase, everlasting covenant, is crucial to understand.
Tell me more about that.
Well, in the ancient Near East, a covenant wasn't just a contract you could break if you paid a penalty fee.
Like a modern cell phone contract or something.
Exactly. It wasn't like that at all. It was a foundational bond of mutual obligation. It was literally the glue of reality.
Wow.
But today, we treat almost everything as a casual transaction. We view marriage, debt, environmental stewardship, civic duty, all of it as temporary agreements of convenience.
That's so true.
So the modern analytical takeaway here is that when a society treats covenants as disposable, the social trust dissolves.
So the broken covenant isn't just about breaking a religious rule.
No, not at all.
It's about the normalization of deviance. Like
Yeah.
we slowly accept a little more corruption, a little more bad faith, until the entire social contract is just completely hollowed out.
Precisely.
But why do we let that happen? I mean, it seems insane to just sit there and watch the trust dissolve.
We let it happen because we're usually too comfortable to notice.
Oh.
This is where the psychology of the text is brilliantly sharp. It highlights how comfort is actually a form of systemic blindness.
I see that in the text. It paints this really vivid picture of distraction.
Yeah.
It says, "The new wine mourneth, the mirth of tabrets ceaseth, and the joy of the harp ceaseth. All the background noise of celebration, the music, the drink, the ease, suddenly stops."
Think about what white noise does.
It blocks things out.
Exactly. It masks the sounds you don't want to hear. The mirth of the tabrets, which is basically the ancient equivalent of our endless digital entertainment, our streaming services, consumer conveniences, all of that acts as cultural white noise. It prevents a society from hearing the structural support snapping in the basement.
That completely reframes the whole idea of comfort for me. It's not just a warning against being overindulgent or lazy.
No, it's deeper.
The insight here is that prolonged comfort breaks our feedback loops. Think about it to our listeners. When everything is easy and delivered to your doorstep in 2 hours, you lose your vigilance.
Absolutely.
We assume the system is robust because it's convenient. But convenience often requires incredible fragility behind the scenes.
Precisely. We lean our entire societal weight on systems that are inherently temporary and heavily optimized for good weather.
Like supply chains.
Yes. We optimize supply chains to have zero inventory, which is great for profits when times are good, but catastrophic when a single shipping canal is blocked.
Right, we saw that happen.
Exactly. We optimize for comfort, not resilience. And when those temporary conditions shift, the crash is deafening precisely because the harps and the music were playing right up until the floor gave way.
Which naturally leads to the immediate human reaction when the music stops and the floor drops. We run. We try to outmaneuver the collapse. But verses 17 and 18 lay out why that is a terrible strategy.
It's a trap.
Yeah, it says, "Fear and the pit and the snare are upon thee, O inhabitant of the earth." And it details this terrifying sequence. Whoever flees from the noise of the fear falls into the pit, and whoever climbs out of the pit gets caught in the snare.
It is a relentless progression. Notice that human effort is completely futile here.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all.
Fleeing the fear directly causes you to fall into the pit. Climbing out of the pit is what springs the snare. The very actions taken to escape the judgment become the mechanisms of capture.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It's like a terrifying game of modern whack-a-mole.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Think about it. We try to solve an inflation crisis by rapidly hiking interest rates that's flaying the fear.
Right.
But doing that instantly triggers a regional banking collapse, so we fall into the pit. So then we print a massive amount of liquidity to save the banks climbing out of the pit, only to spark a massive currency devaluation or a sovereign debt crisis, which is the snare.
Yes.
It's a closed loop.
Yeah.
We just keep running from fear to pit to snare because we think we can outsmart a collapsing system.
Your algorithmic cascade analogy there hits the nail on the head. It perfectly illustrates the arrogance of technocracy.
Yeah.
As modern individuals and as a global society, we suffer from this delusion that we can manage our way out of anything.
We really do, yeah.
We believe that if we just have enough data, the right AI model, or the right fiscal policy, we can manipulate variables to avoid consequences.
But the text says you can't, because the windows from on high are open and the foundations of the earth do shake. The parameters of the simulation have changed.
Exactly. When you are dealing with a foundational shaking, the rules of the game are suspended. You cannot use the tools of a broken system to fix the broken system. The snare catches us because we overestimate our control. We rely on hyper-complex, fragile human systems, and we exhaust ourselves trying to plug holes in a dam that is actively dissolving.
So true.
The text demands that we stop trying to manage the unmanageable.
I have to admit, this is incredibly bleak so far.
It is heavy.
I mean, if the trust is gone, the comfort was an illusion, and trying to fix the system just traps us faster. What are we supposed to do?
Is this text just a 2,700-year-old version of doom scrolling?
Not at all.
Because if there is no way out, why even study it?
Because the text doesn't end with the snare. It introduces a vital pivot, the concept of the remnant.
Okay.
This is where the commentary transitions from the anatomy of a collapse to the anatomy of a reset. Crisis is inherently destructive, yes, but it is also profoundly revealing.
Okay, let's look at that. Verse 13 talks about this remnant. It says that amidst all this desolation, there shall be as the shaking of an olive tree and as the gleaning grapes when the vintage is done.
Beautiful imagery. It is. You shake the tree violently, all the weak and ripe olives fall. But a few stubbornly remain clinging to the highest branches.
It's a stark but necessary image. The shaking reduces everything, but it does not annihilate everything.
Right.
The crisis acts as an incinerator for illusions. When the societal structures and the personal conveniences we idolized collapse, whatever is truly real, whatever is built on bedrock truth, is what remains.
That sounds poetic, but frankly, being one of the few olives left after a violent shaking sounds terrifying, not comforting.
Absolutely.
You're left hanging on a stripped branch. So if the illusions are gone and we are left with this stark reality, how do we actually rebuild? What is the practical mechanism for the remnant?
The mechanism is a radical simplification of trust.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, when disruption clears the board, the greatest danger is the urge to quickly rebuild the exact same Jenga tower on the same bad foundation just so you can get the music playing again.
Right, people just want things to go back to normal.
Yes. But to rebuild intentionally, you have to invert how society operates. You move away from complex dependencies and hyper-optimized global networks, and you invest in robust, high-trust, local covenants.
That makes a lot of sense.
You align your personal behavior strictly with uncompromising values, knowing that short-term comfort is never worth structural rot.
So it's really about shifting your dependencies, which, brings us to the ultimate question of this deep dive. If we are stripping away our reliance on fragile human systems, the economy, the political hierarchies, where exactly does the remnant place its trust?
Look at the reaction of those who survive the shaking in the text. It's completely counterintuitive.
Yeah, in verses 14 and 15, they aren't crying or desperately trying to patch the system.
No.
They lift up their voice, they sing to the majesty of the Lord, and the instruction given to them is to glorify ye the Lord in the fires.
It's wild.
They're literally praising God while the smoke is still in the air.
They are glorifying God in the fires because the fire just proved what cannot be burned. This is the crux of the modern commentary on this text. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this ancient chapter isn't just an observation of how economies or empires fall.
Right.
It is a profound, urgent invitation to relocate our ultimate trust. When human systems fail, they expose the fact that earthly power is contingent.
It's temporary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is fleeting and dependent on a million fragile variables going right.
And the text highlights that fragility explicitly.
Yeah.
In verses 21 and 22, it says, "The Lord will punish the host of the high ones and the kings of the earth, and they will be gathered together as prisoners in a pit, shut up in prison."
Yep.
The people who seemed utterly untouchable, the institutions that we thought were too big to fail, they are locked in the dark.
It's a total inversion of power. While human authority is shown to be impotent and locked in a pit, the text ends with verse 23 declaring that the Lord of hosts shall reign gloriously.
So what does this all mean?
The theological insight here is that trusting God isn't an emotional crutch you use when things get hard. Trusting God is the most rational response to an unpredictable world because God's sovereignty is the only non-contingent reality. It does not depend on the stock market or supply chains or social trust.
That completely shifts the paradigm of anxiety. I mean, if I believe that my safety comes from my bank account or my political party being in charge or the supply chain running smoothly, then I should be terrified
Absolutely.
because those things are currently shaking. But if I realize that those systems were always fragile and that God's majesty outlasts the shaking of the earth, it limits my panic. It forces me to realign my internal values with eternal truths.
When you start trusting the architecture of the house you built and start trusting the bedrock beneath it, your response to the storm changes entirely.
Yeah, it has to.
You don't have to scramble from the fear to the pit to the snare because you are no longer trying to outrun the consequences of a broken system. You are standing on a completely different foundation.
Let's pull all these threads together for the listener. We've explored how ignoring deep internal covenants leads to systemic collapse. A total liquidity freeze of social trust. We saw how the white noise of comfort blinds us to structural rot and how trying to outsmart a collapsing system through algorithmic technocratic control just traps us in a loop of pits and snares.
And crucially, we examined how the fire of crisis strips away those artificial illusions,
Right.
leaving a remnant that recognizes the profound difference between the fragile, temporary authority of man and the eternal, unshakable sovereignty of God.
Before we wrap up, there is one final image from the text that I just can't stop thinking about. Verse 20 says, the earth will reel to and fro like a drunkard.
Connect that back to the very beginning of our conversation today.
The vertigo.
Exactly. We started by identifying that sensation of collective vertigo in our modern age, the dizziness. We tend to view that instability as meaningless chaos, or proof that everything is hopelessly broken.
But what if it's not meaningless?
What if it is highly purposeful? What if that dizziness is precisely the divine shaking required to loosen our stubborn grip on our temporary fragile comforts? It is incredibly difficult for human beings to let go of an illusion that feeds them. Perhaps it takes the earth reeling like a drunkard to force us to finally lose our balance so that we have no choice but to reach out and grab onto the only hand that can actually steady us.
That is a staggering thought to walk away with. The shaking isn't just destruction, it's a recalibration of our trust. We've unpacked a massive amount of ancient wisdom today, but understanding the architecture of collapse is only the first step. The real work happens tomorrow. How will you apply this information in your life?